My ex-wife demanded half of my lottery winnings years after we had been divorced. The judge's ruling left her in tears. Hey Reddit, before we start, I just want to say that this is our new channel, and we're working really hard to bring you the best stories. So make sure to subscribe and support us. Let's start the story. I never thought I'd see my ex-wife again after our divorce was finalized. We had been married for nearly a decade, but the last few years of our marriage were miserable. She was always spending money recklessly, taking expensive vacations with her friends, buying luxury handbags, and constantly pushing us deeper into debt. Meanwhile, I was the one working long hours, sacrificing my free time just to keep our finances afloat. Eventually, I had enough. The love was gone, the respect was non-existent, and all we did was fight. So, I filed for divorce, and after a long, exhausting legal battle, we split everything right down the middle. I had to pay her a lump sum as part of the settlement, but once it was over, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Fast forward several years, and my life had completely changed. I was in a much better financial position, living a simple but comfortable life. I had rebuilt my savings, focused on my career, and even started casually dating again. But everything changed one random Saturday morning when I walked into a gas station to grab a cup of coffee. On a whim, I bought a lottery ticket, something I rarely did. I scratched it off in my car and nearly had a heart attack. I had just won several $1,000,000. It didn't feel real at first. I kept staring at the numbers, my hands shaking. My entire life had just changed in an instant. The first thing I did was get a lawyer. I wasn't about to make any reckless decisions. I took every precaution, remained anonymous as much as possible, and made sure my winnings were protected. I didn't buy anything flashy or do anything that would attract attention. But as careful as I was, word eventually got out. And just like that, my phone started ringing with calls from distant relatives, old friends I hadn't spoken to in years, and, to my absolute shock, my ex-wife. At first, she acted like she just wanted to catch up. She laid it on thick, reminiscing about our past, talking about how she missed me, and even hinting at the idea of getting back together. I saw right through it. I knew she didn't care about me. She cared about my money. I kept the conversation short and polite, but made it clear that I wasn't interested. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A few weeks later, I received legal documents in the mail. My ex-wife was suing me for half of my lottery winnings. Her argument? That because we had been married for years before our divorce, she was entitled to a portion of my money. She claimed that during our marriage, I had always played the lottery from time to time, and that my winnings were a result of a habit that started while we were together. It was the most ridiculous, desperate argument I had ever heard, but she was serious. She wanted millions of dollars from me, despite the fact that we had been divorced for years. I was furious. It wasn't just about the money. It was the sheer audacity of her trying to come back into my life and take something she had no right to. I called my lawyer immediately, and he reassured me that she didn't have a leg to stand on. Still, we had to go through the legal process. And so began one of the most ridiculous court battles of my life. In the weeks leading up to the trial, my ex-wife did everything she could to paint herself as the victim. She went around telling mutual friends that I had abandoned her, that I had cheated her out of the life she deserved, and that she had supported me through tough times, which was a complete lie. In reality, I had been the one supporting her. She hadn't contributed a single cent to my success, yet here she was, trying to cash in on my hard-earned fortune. When the day of the court hearing finally arrived, she showed up looking like she had rehearsed a sob story for months. She wore modest clothes, put on a pitiful expression, and tried to make herself look like a struggling, helpless woman who had been wronged. She claimed that she had sacrificed years of her life for our marriage and that she had always believed we were a team. She even shed a few fake tears, talking about how she had fallen on hard times since our divorce. I sat there, listening to every word, keeping my composure while my lawyer methodically dismantled her case. He presented evidence of our divorce settlement, proving that we had already divided our assets fairly. He also brought up the fact that we had been legally separated for years before I won the lottery, meaning she had absolutely no claim to my winnings. Then came the final nail in the coffin, proof of her reckless spending habits, including credit card statements from our marriage that showed thousands of dollars wasted on luxury items, vacations, and shopping sprees. Her face turned pale. She tried to interject, claiming it was irrelevant, but the judge wasn't buying it. I could tell from the expression on his face that he saw right through her. Then, after a few moments of silence, he made his ruling. My ex-wife had no legal claim to my winnings. The case was dismissed. The moment the words left the judge's mouth, my ex-wife completely lost it. She started crying hysterically, pleading with the judge to reconsider. She ranted about how unfair it was, how she had been struggling while I was living a life of luxury, how I had stolen what was rightfully hers. But no amount of theatrics could change the fact that she had no case. As I walked out of the courtroom, I felt a massive sense of relief. She had tried to manipulate her way into my fortune, but in the end, justice prevailed. I didn't look back as I left the courthouse, and I knew one thing for sure. I was finally, truly free of her. Walking out of that courtroom, I thought it was over. I had won. My ex-wife had humiliated herself, and the judge had shut her down. But I underestimated just how desperate and vindictive she could be. The moment I stepped outside, she stormed after me, her face red with rage. She started yelling about how I had ruined her life, how I had been lucky while she had suffered, how I was a selfish, heartless man who didn't appreciate everything she had done for me. I ignored her. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. My lawyer advised me to leave, and I did. I thought that was the last I would ever hear from her. I was wrong. Over the next few weeks, she bombarded me with messages. At first, she tried to guilt-trip me, claiming she was on the verge of homelessness, that she had no money for rent, that she would have to sell her belongings just to survive. When that didn't work, she switched tactics. Suddenly, she was reminiscing about our past, telling me how much she had loved me, how she had made mistakes but still believed we could be happy together. It was laughable. She had spent years draining me emotionally and financially, and now she expected me to believe she wanted me back? I ignored every message, every call. And when she realized I wasn't going to give her a dime, she got nasty. She started spreading lies about me, telling mutual acquaintances that I had cheated on her during our marriage, that I had emotionally abused her, that I had manipulated the legal system to rob her of what she deserved. Some people saw through her act, but others, people who didn't know the full story, started treating me differently. It was infuriating, but I refused to engage. The last thing I wanted was to be dragged back into her drama. But she wasn't done. A few weeks later, I received a call from my lawyer. My ex-wife had filed an appeal. I was stunned. I thought she had finally accepted defeat. But no, she was still trying to take my money. My lawyer assured me that she had no grounds for an appeal, that it was just a desperate move to try and squeeze something out of me. Still, we had to go through the process again. When we went back to court, the judge didn't even entertain her nonsense for long. She repeated the same weak arguments, but this time, she didn't have the same emotional performance as before. She looked worn out, desperate, and even more unhinged. The judge dismissed her appeal immediately and warned her that if she continued to file frivolous lawsuits, she could face legal consequences. That was the final straw. With no other options left, she finally gave up. She stormed out of the courtroom without a word, defeated. For a while, I was paranoid she would try something else, but eventually, she disappeared from my life. I later heard through mutual friends that she had moved away, probably to escape the embarrassment of her failed schemes. I didn't care where she went. I was just relieved to be free. As for me, I've been living my best life. I invested my winnings wisely, avoided flashy spending, and continued working because I didn't want my money to change who I was. Eventually, I met someone new, someone who actually values me for who I am, not for what I have. And the best part? My ex-wife is nothing more than a distant memory now. If there's one thing I learned from all this, it's that money doesn't change people. It reveals who they truly are. And in my ex-wife's case, it exposed her greed, entitlement, and complete lack of integrity. She thought she could take what wasn't hers. Instead, she walked away with nothing.